And we're back. Welcome to Lovecraft and Back with your host, Aaron Michael Johnson, and the one and only Take It Away.
It's the only one in Mike. Yeah, that's fine. Nah, it's your boy Mike, coming from the Winston-Salem, North Carolina. Hope everybody is doing well today. And yes, you're here with another episode of To Lovecraft and Beyond. How you feeling today, Aaron? How's your day going?
Oh, I'm feeling great. I had a productive day catching up with this awesome episode. How about you?
Oh, man, I watched it this morning just to make sure that I, visually in my head, I see what everything that I want to talk about and, get into the mode of actually talking about the actual episode. So further ado, this is episode 2, Whitey's on the Moon, which I think that is so funny. But when it comes down to it and you hear the poem or the dialogue that happens later I think that's the third act of the episode, it just plays well with it and everything. But on this recovery from their terrible night of the episode 1, we see Letty and George at this nice surroundings of this mansion. And we see Tacitus getting more suspicious of where they are, which is their Outer Rim Lodge host. And then we get a glimpse of Christina Birthright and her elusive father, Samuel, who I can't wait to talk about because he is one of my favorite actors. He was in Scandal, so I can't wait till we get into him. But, Tick is very curious about his birthright, and he wants to know what is going on with the Sons of Adams. And we find them stumbling on a cruise against Mortros, and we're welcome to a whole thing of different antics, memory lanes, and surveillance that I cannot wait to talk about because that was some creepy shit. That was very creepy. So let's talk about this opening scene with the good old Jefferson's theme song. I think that was amazing.
I love
to see them all in their different rooms, and let's just say 2 people in their rooms right now because one person was still shook before we get into him. But see George and Letty just, basking in the glory of the things that they were like given, their treasures or the rewards that they were given for being in this house. You have George. He says he has his library. He has all these books. We know George loves to read. You see Letty with all these different clothes and these fashions and everything, and she's just, jumping around, dancing, and just changing out the clothes. Well,
and it's iconic.
Good. I will give you that, girl. Whoever is the costume designer for this show, kudos to making Letty look fabulous in her little run around of the room that she was doing. How did you feel about this opening scene?
I was thrown off by the Jeffersons theme song, but it was a really good insight because you got to see what their biggest wants were. On a very shallow level. I just you love to see these characters that you've grown accustomed to so happy. That's mostly what stuck out to me. But I already knew something sinister was on its way because it was just a little too calm. It's a little too good. And I guess kind of like you alluded to, we got to see Letty and George have a good time, but Tick wasn't having that.
Tick was not having it at all. It was like it gave me the theme of everything that glitter is not gold. And exactly. I felt like George and Letty was glittering, but Mr. Tick over there was like sitting in that chair, like shook. I think he was just shook and trying to process everything that had happened last night and all up into him getting to Chicago and then going on this road trip, being chased by these firemen, almost killed, being saved by this mysterious white woman. Like all of this is playing in his head, and it's just like, okay, what's going on? Like, what's the real deal? With because you can tell he did not let it go at all. Like he did not. It was still. I guarantee that man didn't get no sleep that night.
Oh,
like he did not get no sleep. So it was very. Like you said, it was very curious to see, like, they're having a good time, but he's not having a good time. He's still processing and playing what he's going through or what they all went through. So, and then we hear this bell, ding-a-ling, ding, 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 ding.
That was very creepy.
right? Creepy, and we see our knight in shining armor, William. That's his name for the rest of this whole series. He's the knight in shining armor because he's blonde hair, blue eye, all put together man, and just looking, perfect. But is he perfect? So,
Exactly.
how did you feel when they were coming out their rooms and he told them, "Hey, we have lunch prepared for you"?
I remember watching it the first time and even rewatching it. I was convinced William was going to somehow kill them right then and there, and then prove there was some big mystical, analogy. And then another part of me was also thinking he was H.P. Lovecraft.
Oh,
I really thought that. I think the very first time I saw it, even going off of, the ending of the first episode when he welcomed Tick in, I swore he was H.P. Lovecraft.
Right.
Just because, like their universe's version, I was like, oh, well, they're about to break the fourth wall and figure out that they're in a show or a book or something. But no, they went somewhere completely different, which, was interesting to me. But I think what kind of upped the creep factor was when he was basically serving them, and he admitted to serving these three black people. Only Tick could remember what happened that previous night.
Right. I thought that was like, he's the only one that remember, and then he's sitting there asking them when they're at the lunch table outside, like, so y'all don't remember the monsters, like you don't remember nothing. They're like, what? Then they think about it and they can't recollect anything
that
happened to them. Like it's just a blank. It's just a boom. Like there's nothing. They just remember everything up until when they was being chased by the firemen and everything. They don't remember the cabin. They don't remember having this little almost triumphant, feel of defeating those monsters. So
and see,
very creepy.
And my question is, were there more people that they did this to?
Right.
Were there more? And I have a feeling that it, that is the case, but it opens up a lot of possibilities and a lot of questions when you have this kind of setup.
Right. It's a lot of setup. So with that being set up, let's talk about the Sons of Adams, and let's talk about how, Miss Christina and her dad, because I think that is just it's a complex relationship. Like you can already see that Christina is trying to please her dad, but her dad is just trying to do what he wants to do for himself. Right. And basically find that key or that blood that can get him into the Garden of Eden for he can have his immortality. So, he's very obsessed with it. He wants to put everything in place and be able to have that immortal life. And, we all know now that, Tick is that person. So it's like he wants to use him for his, his blood and everything. So how are you feeling about their whole relationship and them being...
I'm gonna sound like a broken record, but for some crazy reason, I thought when we first met him, I thought he was H.P. Lovecraft because I was really convinced H.P. was going to show up throughout this, this big mansion. I think that was a really interesting dynamic because, in the book, Christina didn't exist.
Right.
Basically, I really liked, how they kind of set up that, there's this, there's a trust between, this father and daughter, but at the same time, there's a distrust mostly coming from Christina because she's like, no matter how hard I work, my dad's not going to let me in the Sons of Adam. She, and I'm, if anybody knows me, I'm a pretty big on religious horror, aspects, and just that whole Garden of Eden, plot point that was very interesting to me because, he, goes around quoting the Bible. He's obsessed with, calling himself Adam, and I'm just thinking, well, where is his Eve? And then, then I was like, well, does that mean Christina's Eve or is she Lilith? And, that goes in a whole other, Christian aspects, but like that whole, that father-daughter dynamic that wasn't in the book brought a different, air of just kind of severity that I don't think was originally there.
Yeah.
And to have Tick kind of in the middle of this, between these two white people, because this obviously is a commentary on what we can go into it further later, but a commentary on feminism and mostly like white feminism within, that, especially during that time, because this is, the 50s. And just to have Tick caught in the middle of this and, kind of feeling like Christina's an ally.
Right.
I think that was very interesting, just that whole thing. But then I have to ask, how long have they been watching Tick?
Right.
Because, she was in the first episode. Well, how long has her father been watching? How long has the whole Sons of Adam been watching him? Did they watch him since, the war? Like this, there's some...
It's a lot of questions because when you say how long have they been watching him, because how did you know that? For my thing was, how did you know George loved books? How did you know that Letty could fit all these clothes? Like, how long have you been watching this family? Like, you obviously knew that Tick had a birthright to this, whatever. Like, you obviously knew that he was the key to your immortal living. So, like you said, how long have y'all been watching this man? So that's really crazy that you said that. How long have you been watching him? To keep things rolling, we see Tick goes off into the town of Ardenham, and this town is creepy. Like, I don't care what nobody says. It's just the way that it's set up, the kids running around and everything. But we come across him running up on this woman. I think he hears that whistle. I do want to point out the fact that, Lady was saying maybe he's having, PTSD for him being in a war and everything like that. And it was funny how he walked up and said, nah, this is not that, this is not what's going on. Like, it's some creepy stuff going on. I can feel it. I'm going to get to the bottom of it. That whistle blows and we see this lady with these two dogs. And she's like, y'all need to be careful, blah, blah, blah. And you need to be aware of your surroundings and everything like that. And, get in before the sun goes down. And it's like, okay, what are you trying to say? Like, are you going to hurt them when they're still out? Are you going to, destroy them or anything, like kill them or anything? But it was just funny to see that character in particular, because going through this episode and going through the series, I'm like, oh, wow. It's just this episode and last episode, it opens up so many doors for other episodes. But continuing, I really want to get into the whole when they get back and everything, and we see we see Samuel, which is Fitz. I call him Fitz because he came from Scandal. He's one of my favorite characters on Scandal. But to see him play this big role and seeing him on this table talking to his daughter Christina, and then also Tick, and as you said, quoting the Bible, he's very, very obsessed with calling himself Adam. Very obsessed with, getting what he wants and everything. So I felt like they gave us a little insight on him. It gave us what his end game is, what his goal is, and he really only cares for himself. So I was just really like, okay, he's out for a prize. He knows what he wants. He knows what he needs to get. And you can already tell he was not paying his daughter any attention in that point, because Tick didn't quote the Bible when he asked him to. It was her. And it was just like, I heard you. I heard what you said. But, it was more or less of like, what he knows what he wants to do and everything like that. Yeah. So about these rooms, it was very weird to see them all have their, I don't know, like what they were fighting their own demons. You had Letty with this fake Tick. You also had George having this romantic dance or flashback with a lady that was in his wallet. And then you also have Tick fighting with someone from his past. And it was all just different aspects of what they were either wanting or what they were fearful of, or what, they had been putting back in their past and not trying to, come to sense with. that's what I got from that whole thing. It was like, you know, you have Letty, who's probably does have this connection with Ted, and then with them being friends, childhood friends, and them coming back and seeing each other and then being on this adventure, what was left behind can be come back into this new birth love. Right. You have George with this lady who we now know is a lady from his past who he was in love with and everything, who is possibly, it is Tick's mom. So it's like, you know, what is the connection there with them? You know, what happened between, why is this their strong connection with them? And, you know, because George was just into it and danced with this woman. And then we have, like I said, Tick with this lady. And we know that it is Jamie Chung. And but what confused me with that is that the tension that they had with each other. It was so much tension with them fighting with each other. So it was more or less like, what was the issue for y'all to be so headstrong with each other? But with him calling and she not wanting him to leave, and maybe to think that that is what the tension is. Like, you know, he didn't want to leave. Well, she didn't want him to leave because she saw, you know, him dying or whatever. And then now it's like he's dealing with that in that room of, that's one of his demons that he did not let go. How are you feeling about that whole situation with each one of them going through
that scene, or those scenes? That was absolutely the opposite of the opening, you know, Jefferson scene for me. Right. It kind of went back to that Lovecraft, you know, style. It was very creepy, especially, you know, that scene with Letty and Tick. You know, I obviously caught, you know, the mirroring of the painting, you know, when Tick pulled his pants down and it was a snake. That, like that, I was like, okay, so, and then my mind immediately went, well, so is Letty supposed to be representative of Eve and is Tick Adam, you know? And so what is the apple? And, you know, my mind went kind of everywhere, but my main takeaway from that whole thing was, you know, was Uncle George, Tick's dad, because, you know, in the vision, you know, his mother, she brought up, she's like, you know, basically, I think Tick is yours. And he's like, no, we handled that years ago. And that kind of let me know that's where their mind is. Even with all the things that are happening, their demons are still popping up, you know, their personal demons, in that Letty is conflicted with, you know, how she feels about Tick all of a sudden, because that's the only person she feels like she has at this point, because even though, you know, she has a sister and a brother, that's who she's closest with. George, you know, he left his family behind, you know, to go with another family, basically. And Tick is dealing with, you know, his demons from the war. And I think what makes that scene creepier and even crazier is that these are all just rooms of surveillance from the sons of Adam. Like they're watching them. And that, I think that for me, it kind of felt like Eyes Wide Shut in the big scene where they're all standing around watching, you know, basically this orgy happen. If you hadn't watched that film, man, like absolutely watch it. It's intense. Stanley Kubrick.
I don't think I've seen Eyes Wide Shut, so I will be watching it. But what?
Check it out. If anything, I really feel like, side note, I feel like this episode was inspired by a lot of Eyes Wide Shut, because just the setup, the tone, that eeriness. But yeah, though the Sons of Adam definitely felt like this cultish group just watching these people suffer.
Very, you know, occult, like seriously, like you, like, all right, is this entertainment to you to see them? And then they were laughing, like they were laughing and drinking whatever they were drinking. They were laughing like at these three black people go through their trauma. Like they were all going through trauma at that point, and they were just, you know, kiki ha ha. And it makes me think what leads to the dinner. Like, is this is this your entertainment before the dinner? Because right after that we have the dinner.
And then that kind of reminds me of slavery.
Say what?
That reminds me of slavery.
Oh, yeah.
You know, during, you know, having your slaves entertain, you know, the master and his guests before.
Right, like still in the Jim Crow era. Like we ain't going no time soon. We still here. Like, so as you said, like, yeah, that was entertainment to them. Seeing these black people go through their trauma and seeing them, you know, deal with what they're gonna do and everything like that. So yeah, that was crazy. On to our dinner statement and scene. That was kind of cool because I think for me, seeing that Uncle George stood up for Tick when he had known about the bylaws of the Order of Ancient Dawns, I think that was like a good takeaway because it was like they were already looking at them like they were crazy. One, they was dressed for the part. Tick and Uncle George had their suit on. They was looking fly and everything, and they sat down. And it was very informative to see Uncle George actually stand up and say, no, he is a descendant. He does have a voice in this right now. So let him have his voice. He is a son of among the sons. So let him have his voice. Let him do what he wants and let him say what he has to say. So how are you feeling about that?
I guess this is the episode where I'm going to start going deep with the theories. So to me, that was an awesome scene. It reminded me of, like, this is going to be so random, but this reminded me a bit of the infamous Denzel scene where he's like, you know, King Kong ain't got nothing on me.
Right.
Just having Uncle George just stand up and, you know, speak to this huge group of, you know, white men and, you know, essentially intimidate them when he reveals, you know, that Tick is, you know, essentially the last son of Adam, you know, that they're, you know, praising. But I'm going to go a step further and say that it also takes my mind to this idea of, because just let me preface this with, we all, you know, we're going to go further into, you know, Tick's relationship with his father, but this scene kind of takes my mind to how black men look at, you know, a lot of other black men as surrogate fathers if they have family issues, and how, you know, they look out for each other, and it's, you know, not a very toxic situation, you know, just having, you know. And it also reminded me of these, you know, civil rights leaders, because Tick could easily be represented as, you know, the black community, basically, you know, he and Letty, and to have Uncle George stand up and, you know, do this big eloquent speech, you know, with such diction, and then Tick saying, you know, get the fuck up out of here, like that automatically, right? Like that, see, that takes me to
go.
how that, you know, that's how, you know, the civil rights movement is. And I'm just like, this is, you know, this show's got some layers. It definitely has some layers.
So many layers to peel back, and it's a great opportunity to learn from it, because, as you said, for him to stand up for him, and then he has his back of his nephew, maybe his son, but, you know, has his back of his, you know, nephew and everything, and, you know, everybody gets out. He has that opportunity to stand on his ground and say what he needs to say, because this is his birthright, and he wants to know, what is it that I have to do? So, you know, it was a lot to take in for me, like super a lot. I think next we could talk about going into, you know, them trying to escape.
Keyword is try.
Like, trying to escape, because we see them go down back to that tower, and they see that Tick's dad, Montrose is gone and everything. And then Uncle George is like, wait a minute. He's looking around, he's searching, and he thinks about that book of Monte Carlo, and he was like, pulls back. He says, help me. Pulls back that rock, and you can tell that Montrose had dug his way out. And I thought it was so cool how the scenes played well with each other, how we see the hole, and it looks like it's dirt still falling, so you can tell he's probably still crawling out. And then we see, boom, his hands burst out, still, like, you know, handcuffs or whatever he was on, and then you see him get out, and his convention coming out and just feeling like, you know, excited, and you know, he did it by himself. He didn't, not saying he didn't need nobody, but he didn't need nobody at that point. Like, he got himself out of that hole. He got himself out, and he was very, very excited for what he's accomplished. And then it was just funny to turn around and see they were all right there, like, man, we've been looking for you. Like, where you at? Like, we here to save you. And he's like, I don't need you to save me. And it was just like, for me, I thought that was just really cool to see. Yes, this family, but it was just really cool to see them all together again. And, you know, Tick gets to see his dad, but it was also that tension there. So, you know, how did you feel?
Oof. It was a very good metaphor, you know, with having, you know, Montrose basically dig himself out of this hole that he created. That's a very good metaphor for, you know, his character. But just immediately, you know, that whole attitude, like his change from, you know, being relieved and then turned around and be like, what are you here for? Like, that was hilarious.
I was like, what? They just like, you wrote him the letter. You wrote him the letter.
That is his character. And the thing is that is his whole character, you know, to a T, you know, until obviously till, you know, a little later. But just, you know, that whole attitude, but it also shows, you know, how intelligent, you know, he is around the whole situation, you know, himself with the whole situation.
Still don't trust him.
Right. But my question is still, how did he get caught up with them in the first place?
Right. Like, because you know so much about the Book of Adam. You know so much about where you are and everything like that. Right. Like, what did you do in your past to know about them? So it's like, what have you done for you to be so like knowledgeable of everything that has happened? And then it goes to it as he has his character develop, and we'll go more to it as the podcast goes on. But as I just said, it made me firstly not trust him for some reason, because it just made me feel like you're doing things that I don't feel like, you know, it makes it seem like you're hiding something.
Right.
So, you know.
And it also made me think Uncle George was hiding something too.
Right. Especially when they have that conversation after this whole other big scene with the shooting and everything. So it's like, you know, like, what are y'all hiding? Like, what is the tea? Like, what did you two do, or what pact did you make? So I don't know. Like, it was like, now since the series is over, you know, season finale was by now. The season finale had just happened this Sunday, but now as just, you know, everything makes sense with his character development. Everything makes sense with a lot of people's character development as we'll go through. But it does make sense sometimes. It really does. But seeing them at the forefront of the beginning of the series, it's just like, what are you going through to be feeling like this?
Yeah. I had so many theories going through my mind, you know, just like with you, I was like, I don't trust this guy, because when he, you know, even when he told Tick, you know, I didn't write you that letter, I'm like, so is he somehow plotting with the sons of Adam to like get all, you know, like it was a lot, but you know, you kind of went into it, but just the scene right after where they all, you know, basically steal a car to try to escape, and you know, they get confronted. I was expecting Montrose to sell his family out.
Right.
I really was. But, you know, for him not to, you know, that also speaks on, you know, the character that we would come to know. Right. But I'll let you talk about it. But
is it bad that I thought when Tick was screaming out for Christina, I just knew Christina was just going to be like, whoosh, like it's some magic or something, and I'm just in it. And the way she was looking at him like, I can't help you, and I'm just like, oh my god, like that scene was so. Even watching it today, I was just like, oh my god, like this is a mess. Like you rough. See this man begging you, but it's just crazy. Like they're all driving out, and then it's just this big magical wall, boom, like car crash, everything. And I'm just like, what in the world? Even though I did think they would escape, but I didn't think they would. I didn't think it would be like that. And that, I think for me, that's what the show does. It raises the bar.
Yeah.
I saw a lot of people saying, when this episode had aired, like, oh my God, this felt like a season finale. No, it really felt like this was like a season finale because it was so many ways they could have ended. Like they could have ended this, they could have ended that episode when Montrose came up out the ground. That could have been it. But then they continued to go further, and then they, they're all together in this car, and then boom, it could have ended right there with the boom and then crashing, and but it went a little more further, and you see Samuel, you see Christina, and then bam, Samuel shoots Sleddy. And then we all just sitting here like, I know y'all didn't put Journey in this show to kill her off in 2 episodes. Because our show said it. Like, no, y'all didn't put her in this show for 2 episodes to sit up here and kill her off. Like, I think for me, it was the emotion and the intense. It was very intense for me because I like stuff like that. I like lead me on, like, let me know, like, give me the little stuff that make me feel like, oh my God, are you really about to sit up here and kill Journey? Like, are you really about to sit up here and do this? And then you go, and then he makes another shot, and then you cut the screen flat. No shade. It could have ended right there. But
I thought this was going to end right there.
Right. I thought it ended right there, but then,
right.
Gotta talk about the next scene. But like the way this last 15, 20 minutes of this show was some good ass writing, some good, some good like teasing, because like you said, it could have ended at any of those scenes, but they kept going. So it made it more intriguing to watch and see how it would end. So going to that next scene after that, you see them Mr. Tick sprawled out like he on the cross, and I'm just like, Lord, why they got this man like this? Like, but it's just crazy because he's being, prepped and prepared for this ceremony for the sons of Adam. And like as Samuel said, you do what I ask, I will save them. And the fact that he had to go that far, that just tells you who Samuel is. Samuel wants his immortality. He wants to live forever. He wants the power of just, ruling. So you can tell that was his end game. He doesn't care about Tick. He doesn't care about his daughter. He doesn't care about none of them. He cares about his only goal, and that's for him to have immortality. So to see them, prepping him up and him having this conversation with Christina, and I have a soft spot for Christina, but only because I feel like Christina, I like witches, I like magic. So what she gives off, it gives me life. Yes, she's a white woman. Yes, she's doing all these things to these black people. But for me, like the supernatural aspect of that character is what's giving me life. Because when she did that spell and then let him out that door earlier, previously in the scene, I was like, okay, she got power. She has magic. She's a baddie. Like, she knows some things. But to see her explaining everything and giving him this ring and telling him, like, I've wanted these rings and I've never gotten any of these rings. And you come in here and you get this ring automatically because you have the blood and you have what he wants. You can tell it's still more tension with her and her dad. And you can tell she on her own has an end game for herself. How did you feel with all of that going on?
That, I'm glad we brought this one up. I was going to bring it up earlier and I'm glad I didn't. That kind of, for me sets up that there was going to be, some, obviously some tension between Christina and Samuel, but also Christina and Tick, because, the underlying thing from that whole speech, when she's giving him the ring, that she's always wanted since she was a little girl, that told me, that Christina's basically saying, this white girl am seeing less of, anything my father respects, even a black person, and especially in those times, it's, in the 50s Jim Crow era, like Christina's like, my father respects this black man that he wants to sacrifice more than his own daughter. Like that for me, is like, okay, Christina, she's a very complicated character. And, what I really like about that is, she's making all these promises, to Tick, and, kind of inching him that he can, do something, basically to undermine, her father. And I'm like, okay, so is she a good guy? Is she a villain? What's her end game? And that is, that for me shows a very well written character, because she's not necessarily evil, but you don't really want to root for her. She's like the character you love to hate. Like, I really, like this aspect, because before that, I was just like, who is this girl? Why is she, walking around making, empty promises? Like, it's a very interesting character that they're setting up with her. And just to know that, like I said, she's basically giving a wink, wink, nudge, nudge that Tick can get out of this and, live. I'm just like, okay, so she's got her own plans.
Right.
I was
on plan.
Yeah, I was wholeheartedly expecting her to create the Daughters of Adam to undermine her father. I was really expecting that.
Wow, hey now. The Daughter of Adams, that could be something that they bring in season 2. No shade, because I didn't even think about that. Right. Like, whoa, that is something. That's something really to put a pin on, the Daughters of Adams. Right. But yeah, you can tell she had her own end game. Like, she is just, and then when you see the ceremony happening and you see everything, it's just, you can tell that Samuel just knew that he was going to get what he wanted and everything like that. And, you can tell that things could go a little left or could go a little right. I wanted things to go right for Tick and the family, because I honestly did not want them to actually have to, I didn't want Samuel to have what it was, because I feel like Tick and him had already been through a lot already. So, I want Tick to have what he deserves, and I want him to have, his relationship with his father and everything like that. And in that scene with him talking to Christina, we did see Letty come back. We have a conversation with George and Montrose, and that's that whole conversation where, George said, well, he might not be yours. And it's just like, it's so many sets up for future episodes and future tension and future development of all the characters. So it's very, it's very intriguing and very interesting. So it was really, really good. Get to the ceremony, and, Samuel is casting his spell, and, everything is going haywire and everything, lightning and thunder and all this and that. But the beautiful thing about this whole scene was, yes, you saw that the portal was opening up the whole Garden of Eden and everything. But what was so intriguing to me was that when he put that ring on, and when he had his hand up and everything, but that ring had that smoke coming out. So it made me feel like, did Christina put something on the ring? But also, as we see that the portal is opening, we also see his great grandmother Hannah. So with this book, so it's like, was it her? Was it Christina putting a spell on the ring? Like, what was those things that were happening in that whole transpiration of that scene?
Right. That I think once you saw, let's just call her Big Mama for right now. When she saw Big Mama, with the book of names, essentially, intertwining with the, Letty coming back to life, being like, oh my God, did I really just get shot? That whole conversation between George and Montrose, and then, Tick just opening up the Garden of Eden. Like, and my question is, was that really the Garden of Eden? Or they open up just a whole nother dimension?
Right. I love that they've been opening up dimensions and
and they just finally found something. Like that was very, that's a lot to have in such a short, amount of time. I wholeheartedly agree when, everybody was saying this is season finale potential, because that was a lot to take in.
Right.
But, that setup with Big Mama with the book, I'm just like, okay, who is this?
Right.
Obviously important. I thought she was like Harriet Tubman's sister. I don't know what they were trying to set up, but I was just like, okay, well, this is important. This other scene's important, and just that's still have George basically dying.
Right.
With all of that let me know, like, even though something good's going to come out of this, because Christina basically was giving Tick a wink, but like there's still tension, because if all is said and done, is George going to survive? And I am hell bent at that point to be like, well, George is obviously going to get healed, because in the book, he's fine. However, we'll get to that in a second.
Because we got that in our notes right now, and now we can go ahead and get into it, because like like what, like, man, you killed George off, like, I don't know, like, yeah, let's talk about it. Yeah, the whole scene, boom, the power, the dang, like all the Samuel and his whole crew, boom, turning the stones. Like, Tick, I thought, never mind. Tick was Green Lantern at that moment right then. Powerful, and he had just, boom, like they all turn into stone. Everything is crumbling around them. We get this first glimpse of Big Mama running out with this book, and she turns and looks, and the whole place is in flames while it's crumbling. So it's you're getting two different. You're getting present and you're getting past at the same time. Love you, writers, for doing that. Love you, everybody who did that.
Absolutely.
Getting that present and you're getting that past, because that past will continue to set up the future of this series. So that was good. But it's just, Tick, he's excited because he's getting out. He's everything. And then, lady comes up to him and, she's embracing him and everything. And then to see, for him to, she didn't even have to say it. She just gave him that look and gave him that shook in that eye. And you can tell that he knew that Uncle George had passed away. And I want to know what was, I mean, especially now with the season of it, I want to know what was, what was her reasoning for that? Like, he's a pillar, but at the same time, I get it. So, I mean, we both can say that we were really hurt about that.
Yeah. I'm certain, just for, story wise, it was supposed to put some hair on Tick's chest, essentially. It reminds me of, those superhero origin stories, where the parental figure dies, from their own hand. But I'm just like, why Uncle George? What did Unc do to you?
Right.
All he had was some bad knees. Why you kill him off? Why you do that? Like, that's one of the few choices. I'm like, you take one of the most likable characters, and I know it's going to be good drama from it, because we get later episodes about it. But I'm just like, oh, that was
at that point I was like, okay, girl, what did you do?
But that also lets you know how well the writing and the directing was.
Yes.
And Courtney B. Vance's, acting, because, they could have easily had Uncle George be this, boring character where you're just like, oh yeah, he's obviously gonna die. Oh well.
Right.
Whatever.
Well written and just well overall. And I say it again, like I said last time, top tier, unmatched.
Absolutely.
Top tier and unmatched. So, it was a great ending, a great setup. I mean, we ended that episode with that happening and everything. And, It was good. Overall thoughts, it was a good episode. Like you said, it does feel like a season finale because there's a lot of things happening, but I don't think it's like a season finale. It's a season finale of opening of the new things for what's going to happen. It sets up a lot of things for the future of episode 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Like, it sets up a lot of things for the show. So it was another good show in my book.
Absolutely. It was really refreshing though, just we really got into the Lovecraft aspects. We didn't bring this up, but that birthing area, where they were birthing these monsters from a cow,
right?
Basically using, spell work like that. That's pure Lovecraft. I swear I'm going to say this at least once an episode. It's pure Lovecraft.
Supposed to say it.
Right. But it
if
really
you want, you can explain it.
Yeah, it was, just having this, this monsters, these, otherworldly beings, being birthed from something, from our dimension, basically.
Right.
From a creature that, everyone, knows. And, that goes into a lot of theories about like aliens, and, these reptilians and all this stuff being birthed from like, cows and things like that. They definitely did their homework, with the conspiracy theories, but like that, this whole episode, it, like you said, it was basically the ending of what episode 1 promised us because, we don't have, it's like Sundown Town on steroids. It's a sundown town because when the sun goes down, there's witchcraft and monsters, everywhere.
Ooh, yes.
Right? But I just, I think, once that episode ended, you were like, okay, truly whatever episode 1 told me the show was about, whatever the first 30 minutes told me the show was about of episode 2, you can forget it because this is true Lovecraft horror, with everything.
Yeah, I second that. Like, yeah, because it's as we go on and we get deeper into each episode, it's just so many elements that they do touch on from the Lovecraft universe, but there's so many different elements that they touch on with more of the character development, the more of the monsters and everything, and the more of the parallels of, the racist aspect of racism. Like, it's so many things that they touch on. Misha did a great job. Jordan Peele does a great job. JJ did a great job of everything that they have done to bring this series to life. And, like I said, I can't wait to get more into it because it's, like I said, it's encouraging. I mean, for us as two people who want to write and bring to life our own ideas that we have, it's very encouraging. So we appreciate the show. We appreciate the creators, and we are super excited to see what we have gotten thus far.
Yeah, so, absolutely.
Yeah. All right. So thank you for enjoying this episode of Two Lovecraft and Back. You can follow us at LCB Pod on Twitter, and we will catch you next time.
Have a great and scary rest of your day.